Hello, hello, yes. Please take a seat. We're going to start in 1 minute. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Very welcome to the 10th SDMX Global Conference here in Rome. It's great to see you here and see like a full room. I'm Marco Marini, and I'm from the IMF Statistics Department. It's a pleasure and honor to open this event and to see so many colleagues, partners, and friends from around the world, in person and online. I'm delighted to be joined on stage by an exceptional panel today. Sergio Nicoletti Altimari, Deputy Governor of the Banca d'Italia, Bruno Tissot, Head of Statistics and Research Support of the BIS, and Steve McFeely, Chief Statistician of the OECD. Thank you all for being here. Before we dive into the program, let me thank Banca d'Italia for hosting us so graciously. The 8 SDMX sponsor organizations, BIS, ECB, Eurostat, ILO, IMF, OECD, UN, and the World Bank for their leadership, vision and commitment in making this conference possible, and also Roma Eventi and its staff for their support in hosting us in this beautiful venue. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. To connect to the Wi-Fi, you will find the QR code that connects you directly to the Wi-Fi network, including the password. Otherwise, you will find also network and password on signages in this auditorium. Another useful QR code is was shown on screen to get the latest conference program. Just visit the conference website, sdmx2025.org. You can see the QR code here. And for social media engagement, we encourage you to share your impressions and key takeaways using the hashtag SDMX2025. And finally, if you need any help throughout the conference, please visit the registration desk. Someone will be happy to assist you. Now, to formally open our conference, it is my great pleasure to invite Sergio Nicoletti Altimari to deliver the welcome remarks on behalf of our host. Nicoletti Altimari, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and guests, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to the SDMX Global Conference, a gathering of some of the most dedicated and innovative professionals in official statistics. So on behalf of the Bank of Italy and the organizers, I extend a warm welcome to all of you here in person or online. This conference stands at the crossroads of three powerful forces shaping our institutions today. The explosion of data in digital societies and rapid, maybe even extraordinary technological innovation, and the growing need for interoperability among those who produce and govern data. And these forces, in a sense, come together in SDMX, which is a true cornerstone of modern statistical cooperation. But let us take a moment just to reflect on how far you have come. In earlier decades, the exchange of statistical information between central banks, national statistics offices, and international organizations was mainly manual, fragmented, in many sense inconsistent, and even modest updates could involve long delays, duplicated efforts, and inconsistent interpretations. SDMX emerged in response to this reality, and it was launched as a collaborative initiative by leading international organizations who we have here today, the BIS, ECB, Eurostat, IMF, OECD, the UN, the World Bank, and more recently ILO. And it was designed to harmonize the statistical process, streamline reporting burdens, and above all to make data exchange more efficient, transparent, and reusable. But today, SDMX is also much more than just a data transmission protocol. It is a shared language, a community of practice and practitioners, and a technical backbone for the global statistical system. In today's world of speed, complexity, and global interdependence, SDMX clearly plays a vital role. It ensures that statistical systems we depend on for monetary policy, for economic monitoring, social planning, sustainability remain responsive, interoperable, and fit for purpose. Decisions now demand data that is reliable, well documented, and delivered faster than ever. And central bank need obviously a real-time view of the economy, early warnings on financial stability risks. Statistical offices must track complex realities from supply chains to climate to digital economies with unprecedented detail and agility. In this context, SDMX make a difference. It enables automation of data flows, standardization of concepts and definitions, transparency and trust in how statistics are produced, and above all, collaboration across institutions and borders. Even if we don't have very precise data, surveys show that a steady rise in SDMX adoption worldwide. Multilateral organizations have built repositories, registries, and provide central access to validated high-quality data. And these are not just technical milestones, they are institutional reforms that enable better policy making. In the EU, central banks now use SDMX pipelines to transmit monetary statistics to the ECB and to the IMF, so cutting reporting delays, reducing manual work. National statistical offices apply SDMX to harmonize data and metadata, simplifying integration, improving coherence, and lowering costs also. The Bank of Italy, I should say, supported SDMX from the very start, contributing to technical and statistical working groups, developing open source tools, and as a founding member of the BIS, promoting also the involvement of the global central community, central banking community. And equally important, I should say, is our partnership with ISTAT, the Italian Statistical Office, who has been also a major contributor to SDMX on both, and both institutions have greatly benefited from this collaboration. The road ahead, of course, brings, as usual, both opportunities and challenges. Data is growing exponentially with new unstructured sources from satellite to social media and beyond. And tools like artificial intelligence offer huge potential, but also call for new rules of integration and governance. At the same time, expectations are changing, calling for more transparency, machine-readable standards, real-time analysis. So SDMX must keep evolving, open to innovation, but remaining rigorous on quality and comparability. It's a demanding task, but this community has shown time and again that it can rise to the challenge. Sorry. So over the next 3 days, you will explore all these themes in depth. Here we have representatives from more than 50 countries, almost 150 institutions and private companies. You will hear from practitioners who have implemented SDMX solutions in diverse institutional settings. You will discuss the upcoming features of the 3.0 specification. You will share lessons from capacity building projects and examine how SDMX is being used in emerging areas like environmental statistics and AI-driven validation. But beyond the technical sessions, this conference is, of course, about building relationships, strengthening a global community where experience is shared, the problems are tackled collectively, and innovation is fostered. So let me just conclude. The core mission of SDMX is very simple, yet it is very powerful to share data more effectively across institutions and across borders, and by doing so, helping to build a stronger, resilient system of trusted statistics, a foundation for better choices and better decisions. But SDMX is also more than a technical tool. It is a symbol of cooperation and trust, of our shared commitment to work together, and I should say in a world of increasingly divided by conflict, tensions, and fragmentation, this spirit of collaboration is really a precious asset, and it is our duty, I believe, our privilege, to keep this spirit alive. I'm confident that this conference here in Rome will reaffirm this commitment and strengthen it for the future. So I wish you all a rich discussion, fresh ideas, and especially an inspiring conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nicoletti Altimari, for your warm welcome and for highlighting the power of SDMX, not just technically, but also as a framework, as an initiative to collaborate among all of us. It is now my pleasure to invite Bruno Tissot to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the SDMX sponsor agencies. Bruno and the BIS team have been a driving force behind many of the SDMX innovation that we will be discussing this week. Bruno will share with us how the SDMX work fits into the broader transformation of the data and statistics ecosystem. Bruno, over to you.
Many thanks. It's a pleasure, an honor to be here with you. Dear Governor, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to express my gratitude to all who have contributed to the organization of today's conference, and of course first our host at the Banca d'Italia. So I would like to thank you again, Mr. Altimari, for your warm welcome and very good insights. Many thanks also to my colleagues Giuseppe Bruno and Yuri Marcucci and their teams for being instrumental in organizing this great event. Of course, I would like to thank all the SDMX sponsors that are here in the room today, and I think it emphasizes the continuous and successful commitment of the main international organizations to SDMX observed over the past 25 years. Third, I would like to thank the organizing committee that has worked closely with ISTAT and the SDMX Secretariat to organize this event, and as we can see, the logistics are impeccable. Lastly, my final thanks go to all of you, all this global community of speakers, presenters, panelists, participants. And we will have, of course, very interesting and lively discussions. We will have a mix of almost 13 sessions and panels. 80 topics will be covered. We have about 300 participants physically, representing more than 100 institutions for a large number of jurisdictions, and many more people will join us virtually. We will also benefit from various exhibitions of private and public organizations presenting their products, projects, and initiatives. And for those that think this is not enough, and I know that there are many of you that are with us today that are real SDMX addicts and fans. You can stay in Rome 2 more days because we will have 2 dedicated days for capacity building after the global conference. So let me now start to share some views on the topic of today's event, which is smarter data for better insight, and how SDMX can help to achieve both goals. So smarter data and better insight. Well, when I was a young economist several years ago, in the early 2000s, I was quite intrigued by this acronym SDMX. At that time, there were only a few people involved in SDMX initiative in Basel, and they were quite lonely, I would say, being located in a corner of the BIS tower. I don't know if you see the tower in Basel. They were in a corner. It was like the monks of the name of the rose, the famous mystery novel by Umberto Eco in Italy. And they appeared to me like alchemists working to find a secret potion to produce better statistics. But perhaps it's a good way to describe what SDMX is all about. A potion to produce better statistics. Let me be serious again. So SDMX has really become a fundamental norm that facilitates the exchange, production, and dissemination of data between and within organizations. More importantly, I think, the standard provides an integrated approach enabling interoperable implementations for information systems dealing with statistical data and metadata. So thanks to the perseverance of these precursors, these monks I was mentioning, at the BIS, but also in many organizations, the standard has progressively gained a lot of importance in the early 2000s. And more importantly, the use cases have expanded. Beginning with standardized data exchange and reporting to international organizations, which was the first goal at the beginning, to now modernizing, standardizing the entire statistical business processes, dissemination and sharing, but also data management and governance. So indeed, we are really currently updating the SDMX business case among the sponsors to reflect this impressive change from data dissemination to the whole data chain, in fact, data chain. So the first version of SDMX was finalized in 2004, became an ISO standard just after this. And in parallel, we had a number of software tools that were developed and offered as a public good. So this has been really instrumental to increase the use of the standard by international organizations, National Statistical Office, and other data producing agencies all around the world. But in turn, it helped to streamline the transmission of official statistics and to strengthen their production and dissemination. One example, let me mention en passant, the example of the Africa Information Highway that was launched by the African Development Bank, and it's based on SDMX as a data modeling standard to unleash the power of data in the African continent, and it has been quite successful. Another important step came with the G20 Data Gaps Initiative, established after the great financial crisis of 2008, 7, and 9. And this DGI, Data Gaps Initiative, was here to strengthen the global statistical infrastructure and address the most pressing data gaps. And one of the key objectives of the Data Gaps Initiative in the first step was to foster the standardized transmission of data. And the first global SDMX data exchanges were, in fact, implemented in 2013, so more than 10 years ago. In addition, we had several phases in the Data Gaps Initiative, but the last one, the third phase, has put emphasis on developing access to private and administrative sources of information and on data sharing. So these are areas where SDMX can be instrumental. In particular, there is a focus on microdata in the DGI. Recent years have been even more important achievements. The version 3.0 was adopted in 2021, and the technical specifications 3.1 released in May 25, and they facilitate the modeling of high-dimensional data. The new standard offers new perspectives for dealing with micro and semi-structured data, such as geospatial information, which is a distinctive feature of SDMX, meaning to deal with macro, micro, and semi-structured data. For instance, it allows producers and users to address the increasing demand for climate-related insights, which, as you know, is a key policy concern these days. And because you can mix different types of data, geospatial, macro, micro, etc. Last but not least, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, joined in 2023 the 7 other sponsor organizations, namely the BIS, ECB, Eurostat, the IMF, the OECD, UN Statistical System, and the World Bank. So this is really a clear example of international cooperation at its best, and also the important recognition of the public good nature of SDMX and the value of SDMX. So I will stop here on this historical, could stay many hours on these developments, but let me stop here. It represents an impressive and successful story lasting over more than a quarter of a century. We can all be very proud of this achievement, but we must recognize that this was not easy. We needed to have strong and continuous commitment by all of us to develop the standard, to put staff resources, and of course money, because this is a sinus of war. So for everybody, of course, but even more in official statistics. And one example, and according to rough estimates, the last implementation of the 3.0 standard requested an effort from all of us international organizations of roughly $500,000. So it's a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of staff. Now I would like to switch to another part of my presentation today, which is looking forward. Why and how should we continue to develop and promote SDMX? And of course, we'd like to provide a perspective from the BIS and more generally from the central bank community. I would argue that this perspective is not the only one, but is interesting because, as you know, central banks are strange animals, being producers of official statistics, but also heavy data users in pursuing their public policy mandates. So central banks are really interested in both producing smarter data, but also getting better insights, which are exactly the two focus of today's conference. So to analyze SDMX from this dual perspective, we had a comprehensive survey of central banks on the adoption and interest among the Irving Fisher Committee of Central Bank Statistics. So I would just recall that this IFC committee is a forum of central bank statisticians and economists that discuss general issues related to data for central banks. And this committee represents currently 100 countries in the world. The objective of the survey, we had 3 objectives. One is to assess the state of implementation of the SDMX, measure its adoption rate, and also gain insights on the usage and requirements of SDMX tools across the various statistical processes. We published the results that were done with my colleagues in the room with the IFC report this year, and to reflect on central banks' experiences and needs related to SDMX. I would like to emphasize the following main points. The first is that we have seen a notable and significant increase in SDMX adoption among central banks. The standard is now implemented by almost 80% of the surveyed central banks, compared to only 2/3 10 years ago. And looking across all the statistical domains, SDMX adoption has been quite significant in some key areas like government finance, financial accounts, monetary and financial statistics, financial markets and securities, but also balance of payments. The second, this first point on increased adoption is that why it was successful is because the information model of SDMX is tailored specifically to be metadata-driven data processing. And this enables to standardize statistical processes, resulting in better governance and better operational efficiency. It also provides greater flexibility and agility. Why? Because you can modify the data model you can do this easily because you can change the metadata configuration without disrupting the processing setup or implementation, and therefore you support a more adaptable data management. Third, the SDMX standard enables interoperability. And this is really a key element supporting our institutions to become more data-driven. And a key reason for this is the possibility to integrate and connect different tools. And this is essential to manage and exchange data effectively. And in turn, it helps us to enhance our data management strategies. The fourth point from the survey is the importance of statistical standards like SDMX to improve the findability, accessibility, reusability, and openness of data. And this is particularly important for central bank statistics, not least to maximize their impact, but also to ensure that the central bank statistical function address multidimensional user needs, especially those expressed by policymakers. And of course, and perhaps more importantly, there is a clear need now with the expansion of AI, artificial intelligence, to secure the authenticity, traceability, and interpretability of the official statistics. And the last important factor underscored by the survey is that there is a rich ecosystem of publicly available tools and software that can be used to facilitate implementation. And this in all stages of the data life cycle, in data production, exchange, dissemination. And in particular, most central banks report that they use multiple open source tools, and they appear, to be frank, very satisfied with the tools and the support they receive from the SDMX community. So let me recap. SDMX has a strong and flexible information model, technical standards, and guidelines. It enables data integration, interoperability, meta-driven data processing, and it is a key element to support our open data strategies. And lastly, there is a lot of tools available for implementation. So this was the main outcome of the survey. But then we had important challenges, and I would like to emphasize three main challenges. One is the lack of adequate resources and internal expertise. So it means that developing internal IT tools to address the standard and to implement standard is difficult. And in addition, important gaps remain in the software that are available, despite the increased offering of public open source tools. And this lack hinders the implementation of SDMX across the various stages of the data lifecycle. First resource. Second challenge is the data reporting processes is not completely keeping up with the changes to SDMX. So what we see is that institutions are operating different versions of the standard depending on the data source, but also on the statistical domain. And this, of course, limits synergies, and it raises also the risk of inefficiencies. So these shortcomings underscore the need for statistical compilers such as central banks to stay up to date with the latest version of the standard. And also, we need to rely on the software tools that are adequately updated. Third, the third challenge is that we still need, obviously, altogether to take full advantage of the full possibilities offered by SDMX to enhance the way we produce and use and access statistics. And this is key because SDMX can be a catalyst to harness AI capabilities in central banks, enabling more automated data processing, improving data quality, and also streamlining data discovery. Moreover, there are increasing opportunities provided by international cooperation and knowledge exchange to benefit from the experience reported by others. And there is, as I said, the availability of adequate learning resources to develop specific SDMX toolkits. Let me mention, for example, xdmx.io, the recently platform that was launched to address common challenges by offering open source software, learning materials, but also practical guides. I would like to finish with looking forward. What do we do with these challenges? Lack of resource, tools that are not updated, etc., etc. I think first we need to continue our work to adapt the SDMX standard to the evolving data landscape. So, as I said, SDMX is now better able to deal with new information sources like micro and geospatial data. It's also an important tool for dealing with new data techniques such as AI. And of course, let me mention, there are various initiatives, but the IMF StatGPT project aims to make official statistical datasets AI-ready, and this is important. It underscores the fact that SDMX should, and fortunately can, actually quickly adapt to evolving business and technical needs. The second priority is to foster interoperability with other standards. We know that it's difficult to speak a common data language in our organizations and communities because we all have different specificities. So one way to enhance, we cannot have only one standard to simplify, but we need to enhance operability by building bridges between SDMX and other standards, of course with XBRL, which has become of key interest for central banks and financial supervisors. Another way to do this, this goal of fostering interoperability is what I would call statistical documentation work. By continuing to promote global DSDs, and more importantly, global metadata structure definitions. And on this, we continue our efforts. For example, at the BIS, we are actively preparing for the launch of a global DSD for property prices. Lastly, on interoperability, a very important point is that it demands very good coordination between the IT side and the business side, the statistical experts. And of course, it takes time and resource. I think I still have 15 minutes to go, and I would like to finish. So I said to address the challenge, we need to have to adapt to the statistical data landscape. Second, we need to be more interoperable, especially with other standards. But I would like to emphasize the last part, which is we need to develop a learning resource and communicate the benefit of SDMX to broad audiences. So this means for us technically to make available adequate support services, tools, training material, developing, as we are currently doing, a SDMX certification program, an interactive user forum, implementation guidelines, and this has to cover all the stages of the data lifecycle. And of course, international cooperation is very important from this perspective. For instance, at the BIS and the IFC, our raison d'être is really to facilitate the exchange of experience across countries and across institutions like central banks and supervisors. But of course, ECB, Eurostat, they have developed a lot of experience in developing the exchange of detailed data and metadata between European national statistical systems. And other global international organizations, which are here with us today, they have a large statistical capacity, building resources, so they can be instrumental in promoting the diffusion of SDMX. But what is really important is that we need to make a better job, I think, in publicizing the benefits of SDMX for the use and the production of trusted information. As you know, for us official statisticians, the North Star guiding us are the fundamental principles of official statistics. And they have been developed well before SDMX, but perhaps we have not been sufficiently making the point that SDMX can be essential to facilitate the implementation of these principles. So in a sense, SDMX has been developed a little bit apart from the statistical community that was working on these international principles and that is reviewing them regularly. So let me give a few examples. I have 7 aspects where SDMX can contribute to the promotion of these fundamental principles. First, SDMX facilitates the dissemination of standardized reference information. And this helps sorry, to build trust in official statistics and also to prevent their misuse. So, reference information, first point. The second point is that the standard is an essential backbone for developing data management platforms to deal with data of various types and sources. So this includes surveys, administrative data sets, etc. Again, a very important statistical principle. The third one is that SDMX can cover the full data life cycle, including compilation and dissemination. So this is really supporting the goal of compiling and making available official statistics of practical utility. Fourth, the scientific nature of the SDMX standard supports the fact that strict professional considerations are followed for the collection, processing, storage, presentation of statistical data. And an important factor from this perspective is that, as I mentioned, SDMX has been certified by the International Organization for Standardization, IOS, and this organization brings global experts together to agree on the best way of doing things. So it's a scientific standard. The fifth point is that SDMX focuses on the importance of metadata. And this is a key element to ensure that the information on the sources, methods, and procedures used in official statistics are presented according to scientific standards. Sixth point, the ability to deal with confidential granular data, now that we can deal with microdata, will be instrumental to address the growing need for data sharing for statistical purposes while preserving individual data confidentiality. And lastly, the last example from this contribution of SDMX to the principles guiding official statisticians is that SDMX has been leading by example in terms of transparency. Let me mention ISO certification, the SDMX.org public website, the SDMX.io use case-oriented platform, and the fact that all the enhancements, and in particular the development of the codes, are made public information. We'd like to stop here and take this opportunity to thank and welcome the keynote speaker with us today. So we are very honored and fortunate that George Simon Ulrich, Director General of the Swiss Federal Statistical Office, has accepted to be with us today to present his views on the global statistical landscape. In particular, he will build on his great perspective as chair of the UN Statistical Commission's Bureau. So George Simon will address you in a few minutes, and I am sure all of you will enjoy this talk, as well as the very interesting program that has been set up for the next 3 days. Many thanks again, and I apologize for my voice, but...
Thank you, Bruno, for those insightful remarks and for reminding us how SDMX promotes the fundamental principles of official statistics, who, as you said, are the North Star for us and for those working in the statistical community. So we now turn to our keynote address. As Bruno anticipated, I'm delighted to welcome George Simon Ulrich, who's connected remotely. George Simon is the Director General of the Swiss Federal Statistics Office and current chair of the United Nations Statistical Commission. George Simon has been an advocate for modernizing official statistics, particularly around innovation, importance of metadata and trust. His perspective on where SDMX can make the greatest difference in the coming years will set the tone for our discussions ahead. George Simon, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and even though Roma is not so far away from Switzerland, I couldn't make it to come to your place, but I already heard a couple of things that I can fully support, and I'm fully aware of that. All of you are participating here are actually knowing more than I, so to whom I speak. But I think it's very important, the work you're doing, and I want to mention a couple of things. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, distinguished delegates, it's both my honor and my responsibility to welcome you to this conference. Standing here, I'm reminded of the British historian Adam Tooze describing only 2 years ago, "Welcome to the world of polycrisis." One crisis does not simply follow the other, they overlap, interact, and reinforce one another. Energy crisis interact with conflicts, geopolitical fragmentation meets economic uncertainty and misinformation, and undermines trust at the very moment when clarity is most needed. In these uncertain times, statistics are more than just numbers. They are our compass. They ground us in the reality when public discourse may be dominated by fear, speculation, or deliberate distortion. As chair of the Statistical Commission, I wish to reflect with you on the progress we have made, the challenges we face, and the commitments we must pursue to ensure that official statistics continue to serve as a trusted foundation of evidence-based decision-making worldwide. Because just saying that we need to be a trusted foundation, it's not enough. We have to do something for this. Allow me also to recall that statisticians, we are not only guardians of the numbers, but also guardians of trust. The March session of the 56th Statistical Commission reminded us that without trust, even the best data loses its value. When citizens, policymakers, and community believes that the statistics are impartial, transparent, and independent, those statistics can guide society forward. In times of uncertainties, our credibility is our greatest asset. This is why the Statistical Commission and its subgroups matter today more than ever. We are not only producing technical standards, we are also defining the very possibility of shared facts in a fragmented world. Our context could hardly be more complex than it is today. Wars and violence persist, and economic inequity depends. Climate change threatens livelihoods, social cohesion is strained by populism and polarization. The sense of living in the dark times is one we can all recognize. And yet, colleagues, the story does not end here. Statisticians are perhaps uniquely positioned to remind the world that progress and crisis coexist. Hans Rosling often reminds us the humanity taken as a whole has never lived better. Massless death, once counted in the millions every year, have fallen more than 20-fold since the 1960s. Since the year 2000, child mortality under 5 has been halved. Education, health, and access to infrastructure have expanded dramatically in much of the world. This duality is the reality we must present to recognize the gravity of the crisis of our time, by also showing through comparable data that progress is possible and has already taken place. In that balance lies hope, responsibility, and the core mission of this commission. But often when we read the paper, we think, oh, it's a terrible time, but we also have the task to show what is on the way is getting better. And there are lots of things getting better. The report of the Secretary General on progress towards Sustainable Development Goals, the so-called SDGs, which states that the world is on track to meet or is making moderate progress on 35% of the 137 SDGs target, according to the data available. While progress has been uneven and limited on several goals, notable achievements across regions and countries demonstrate that change is possible. Since 2015, extreme poverty has declined around the world. For the first time, over half of the world's population was covered by at least one social protection benefit in 2023. Progress in healthcare was noted, etc. However, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, escalating conflicts, geospatial tension, and growing climate chaos are hitting SDGs processes hard. The 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals remain as a shared work program, not a wish list. They were agreed upon all 193 UN member states as the world's first common social contract. This is historically incredible. I mean, it has never given something like that before. Despite mounting challenges, progress since 2015 includes major gains in poverty reduction, healthcare, education, access to electricity, and of course also the internet. These successes show that change is possible when countries work together and commit to action. But with the climate crisis, inequalities persisting, and development resources strained, we must accelerate efforts to fulfill our promise by 2030. Investigating in data is investing in development and the 2030 Agenda. I know that's a difficult task, specifically with the media today, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't invest more, or specifically, that's why we have to invest more in showing how the world progress. Since 1946, long time ago, The UN Statistical Commission has played a central role in shaping how the international community understands itself. It was created to ensure that official statistics are not fragmented by national boundaries, but harmonized by shared principles. The UN Statistical Commission has always been more than a technical forum. It is political achievement. It allows 193 countries, with all the differences, to speak a common statistical language. At the 56th session held earlier this year, we adopted two major resolutions: the 2025 System of National Accounts and the Global Census Round to 2030. These decisions illustrate the Commission's power to transform ideas into frameworks that guide global practices. A piece of paper becomes facts. Millions of observations collected in households and businesses compiled by national statistical offices and transformed into knowledge that shapes policy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me turn now to the new and pressing issues. The Global Digital Compact, adopted in 2024 as part of the UN Pact for the Future, has made clear that equitable and interoperable data governance is a global priority. Our Commission has responded by establishing a dedicated working group on data governance. This group is tasked with defining principles and frameworks that ensure official statistics remain trustworthy in the face of unprecedented technological change. The working group of the UN Statistical Commission will work closely with the working group on data governance at all levels, established under the Global Digital Compact within the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. This is not an abstract debate. Artificial intelligence systems are now shaping the information that billions of people see and use every day. Yet, too often, these systems do not draw on official statistics or official data, or they fail to distinguish authoritative sources from unverified ones. Our responsibility is to ensure that official data is accessible, open, interoperable, and very important, AI ready. This also connects our work on standards. The adoption of the 2025 SNA, the updated principle of recommendation for population and housing census, and other statistical norms reflect a commitment to coherence, transparency, and global comparability. Standards are not bureaucracy exercises. They are what allow us to compare poverty in one country with poverty in another country, emissions across continents, and educational attainment across generations. Colleagues, the importance of international standards cannot be overstated. Without them, cross-border comparability collapse. Imagine trying to assess global inflation without a harmonized framework, or attempting to measure carbon emission when every country uses different definition. The result would be noise and not knowledge. The standards are the grammar of our statistical language. Metadata is the dictionary. Without metadata, without information about what our numbers mean, how they are collected, and under what definitions, they lose the power to be compared and trusted. This is why metadata is actually the heart of our work on quality assurance. The National Quality Assurance Framework and the maturity model on a quality cultural for official statistics embed transparency across all stages and data and statistical production. They ensure that from survey design to dissemination, principles of reliability, comparability, and openness are respected. In the digital age, metadata acquires an even greater role. AI systems cannot interpret data without clear, machine-readable metadata. Without harmonized standards, this system risks misinterpretation or overlooking official data, thereby undermining trust. That is why the Bureau is currently preparing to bring a draft resolution on enhancing AI readiness of official data and statistics to the next session of the Commission. So allow me therefore to speak more specifically about this draft resolution. We are preparing it, calls upon member states and international organizations to first develop centralized metadata catalog of accredited official statistics source. Means not only in your own country, but also globally. Secondly, adopt and implement internationally recognized standards such as SDMX, DDI, and DCAT to ensure interoperability and machine readability. Third, define and implement a minimum viable metadata set. So start somewhere, and of course, the statistical data is one you can use for many different kinds, so it's good to start there. Harmonize data model and refine quality criteria for metadata, and support capacity building, especially in low and middle income countries, to enable adopt of standards and modern dissemination platforms. And finally, collaborate with AI developers, major searching engines, and redistributor to ensure official data is represented accurately in AI-generated outputs, because they are the ones that our kids are searching for information. So we have to ensure or make sure that we work close together with them, and that at the end of the day, when they search something, our data is presented and not someone else's. This resolution is not about changing how AI model work internally. It is about ensuring that when AI system interacts with data, they prioritize authoritative, reliable, and well-documented sources. This is essential for combating disinformation and reinforcing the role of official statistics and protecting the credibility of evidence-based policymaking. And ask yourself, is your data AI readable enough? Is it the data that for example, ChatGPT really finds when you search for it? And does it give the same answer even though you ask the same question within 3 minutes? We're not alone in this effort. For example, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, are also undertaking important work to make statistical data more accessible and AI ready. The IMF initiative focuses on ensuring that data is open, accessible, and underpinning by high quality metadata. This is a vital contribution to the broader goal of strengthening the visibility and usability of official statistics in the digital ecosystem. The IMF is also attending the conference today and will present their initiative in the session that follows. The timing is very crucial. AI technology are advancing rapidly, and public trust in the institutions is fragile. If we delay, official statistics and statistics risk being overshadowed by less reliable information. If we act now, we can strengthen the place of official statistics and official data as a cornerstone of public debate in the digital age. But we have to hurry up. The opportunities and risks for this draft resolution are clear. On the one hand, improved visibility and usability of the official statistics will strengthen trust and support evidence-based decision-making. On the other hand, if we fail to act, AI system will increasingly rely on unverified sources and misinformation will spread unchecked. The stakes could not be higher. The draft resolution is also groundbreaking in other respects. It calls for a partnership with AI developers and redistributors. Never before has the Commission officially sought such collaboration. But in the digital age, it is indispensable. Major search engines and chatbot platforms shape the way billions of citizens access information. It's not against each other, it's doing the things together. Of course, with rules and principles we already know. Bringing up these efforts together is essential. Fragmented approaches will not be enough. We need alignment and shared commitment across institutions if we are to ensure that official statistics is represented accurately in AI-generated outputs and remains a trusted foundation for public discourse. This is about visibility, but also about democracy. We are in a data emergency, but at the same time, we have an unprecedented opportunity to show the value of data and statistics. When official statistics are visible and trusted, citizens can make informed choices. When they are hidden or overshadowed by unreliable sources, democratic debate suffers, or even is not possible anymore. Trustiness helps drive the quality and inclusion we need to see in data. Colleagues, the road is not simple. We must continue to invest in capacity development, We must ensure that national data and statistical system, including the NSOs in every country, regardless of resources, have access to the tools, training and platforms they need. We must strengthen partnerships with international organizations, academia, and the private sector. Above all, we must remember that data is not an end in itself. Behind every number are human lives, human struggles, and human progresses. New technologies give us new opportunities, but we should invest in capacity development to leave no one behind. Again, investing in data is investing in development. 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals remain our common contract. It is true that many targets will not be achieved by 2030. But even partial progress represents millions of lives improved, millions of opportunities created. This fight is worth every effort. As we look ahead, let us reaffirm that our mission is to build a data and statistical system that is trustworthy, inclusive, and innovative. A system that speaks to citizens, empowers policymakers, and holds leaders accountable. And let us never forget that the integrity of statistics is central to the integrity of the democracy itself. So I thank you, all of you, member states, international organizations, experts, staff, everyone who's here in the room, for your tireless commitment to this work. Together, we can ensure that in this poly-crisis world, official data and statistics remain as a source of clarity, trust, and hope. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George Simon, for that inspiring keynote and for informing us about the drafter resolution on the Trusted Data Observatory that the Statistical Commission is leading under your leadership. This is, of course, very relevant for the SDMX community, and some of us, I believe, are already involved, and it requires definitely close collaboration. And also, thank you for highlighting the work that IMF and the other sponsor agencies, SDMX sponsor agencies, are leading to use SDMX and connect it to sort of AI readiness. So that's very important, and more to come in the next session on this subject. So yes, stick around and hear us next. So before we continue this conversation with George Simon, I just want to make an announcement for those in the room. I've been informed there is a water dispenser outside, so in case you're thirsty, yeah, you can go outside now. There is water. Okay, so now we'll continue this conversation with George Simon in a fireside chat. We call it this way. And we are delighted to have Steve McFeely, Chief Statistician of OECD and also a leading voice on data governance and innovation, joining George Simon for this discussion. Over to you, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. So this is a bit awkward. I have a fireside chat where you're in front of me and George is behind me, or vice versa. So, George, don't feel offended if I turn my back on you. So, as it's a fireside chat, I thought I would add a bit of atmosphere. Now, usually, when I've used a video like this, it's been a more intimate bilateral. So it's the first time I've ever had a video like this with such a big audience. So this is a new experience for all of us, I think. So, George. When we talk about data, in our community, I think we adhere to the notion that statistics support this Churchillian idea of neutral arbiters. So irrespective of where the debate is going, the statistics that we provide are neutral. And I've heard you describe this as the currency of reality. Would you like to elaborate on this phrase and what you mean by it?
You know, for a Swiss, it's difficult to say a bit about something about neutrality. I mean, there are many different ways of neutrality. I think one of the things that we have to provide is transparency and show how we did it, and we do it the same way. It's sometimes not about how you code now the things, 1, 2, or 3. It is that everyone does it the same way. And so we have the same basis of reference. I think this is one of the important elements. And I mean that we're not trying to bring the discussion to a certain point, but we want to provide the data that you can make your decision. So I mean, neutrality in that sense means really that enable people to do things. The one thing that I think is incredibly important is, I mean, when you look back, I mentioned that in my speech when we founded the Statistical Commission, it is that we do the things together that we can trust each other. We know how we do it, and that gives a kind of certain neutrality in the sense of we developed a common understanding how we measure things, how we name things, how we standardize things. But this also means that we have to do this not only in our own country, that means that we have to do that also globally. And specifically now, we have done that for many things in the statistical world, for example, a GDP and things like that, or also the SDGs. But what we have missed a bit is to do that also in the data world, you know, because of the one thing, if we produce a product, an information product, then we are the ones who control the whole value chain, from the definition to where we collect the data, how we store it, and then the product itself. But in the data world, it's not like this. There are machines searching for information. And we have to ensure that also the data has this possibility or this ability to, even though you combine this, that you have this neutrality within the data. If you think about this, this is really a difficult task. It's about also equity in data. And is the data that I have and I've stored somewhere really also accessible, and can I now play with this data? Even though maybe I have another definition, we still have the task that we have the definition for official statistics to compare the things. But the machine sometimes will not do this again, not do this, and also not, maybe, probably not in the future. So it's an incredibly important task that we describe the data in the metadata in a way that someone else or even a machine can work with that. And I think this is one of the difficult tasks we face now. And because of this technology development in the last couple of years was mainly driven by LLMs, so based on text. But our data mostly is not text. I mean, we don't have text data. And the thing what they find is our dissemination. And the dissemination was never planned to be found from a ChatGPT and then searching data or information in that. So most statistical agency, and I think also a lot administration, they do have their press release, but they're not, I would say, produced in a way like the LLMO that they can be found by these searching engines. And that's why this is an important element. If you don't want to lose the trust, we have to harmonize the data itself. And this goes through metadata catalog. Of course, some countries have done a lot. I mean, some have built up registers, specifically in the Nordic country. It depends also a bit about what investment you have had as possibility in your country in infrastructure. But what we can do is, I think in Switzerland, we developed this I14Y. It's a metadata platform, an interoperability platform, includes all the APIs also as well. And all the administration services are also there. And we started that not only the statistical office, but also all offices from other administration have to describe their metadata the same way and make it there visible. And I think this is a thing that we really have to focusing on and make it also global. That answer a bit your question.
Yeah, so George, you're putting a lot of emphasis on metadata, which I'll come back to in a minute, but is there anything else that the international organizations, the NSOs, the central banks can do, I mean, apart from the metadata, to try and defend or reposition ourselves as the neutral arbiters? It seems to me that maybe we're losing this battle in this morass of information. Apart from metadata, what else can we do?
You know, I mean, actually, you know what you have to do. You have to go outside the world you stay and to talk to others and bring that on the agenda. I think that's sometimes incredibly difficult because quite often statistical offices are not in the middle of the political heat discussions, or they're not they're a bit outside, but we have to be there. I mean, we have, when it started, like the discussion about data governance, we went to the Secretary General, told him that he has a very good commission that can help you. We have to go to our own politicians. We have to try to talk to the media, even though I know, even in Switzerland, I know it's incredibly difficult, because for them it's not kind of a news value talking about metadata. They want to have, someone has to be killed or something like that they write. But we have to write about it. We have to make a bit noise about it. We have to stay for, even though I know statisticians are not the good marketeers, but we have to clarify also for what we stay for. We have to stay not only for the numbers. This was also part of my speech. We have to stay for our role. If you don't know to whom you can trust, to whom you trust. I mean, this was in the founding of the Statistical Commission. This was the main reason why the government at that time, after the war, they didn't know anymore to whom they should trust or to whom they should refer to. So that's why they founded the Statistical Commission. And we have to bring back this discussion again, our role in democracy. We are laying the basis for decision, and we have to make it louder than we've done that in the past. Working together with media is difficult, but we have to try. I mean, some of you have seen the Financial Times took on an article I wrote about the problem that AI can't find our data, or the searching engine can find. But it was difficult. It was almost the only paper wrote about it in a bit broader sense. But we have to try wherever we know people writing about that issue. It is actually not the first time. If you think back, those who knows Habermas and Frankfurter Schule in Germany, this was the discussion about how democracy works. What are the structures and how they're built? They thought a lot about who is creating, or who is the currency of the reality at the end of the day. And they argued quite often, we are the ones, but we have to agree on what is the currency, what is reality. And then it starts to exist. And statistics is actually exactly something like that. I mean, a lot politicians do that as well. They just take their own opinion and say, this is now the reality. And then they tell you a lot of stories why that makes sense what they do, and hope that most people follow them. But this is not the way we create reality, or we create a basis for decision making. And we have to discuss this role much more than we do today. Today we are recognized as the one who bring the figures, but actually not the one who have this role to enable people to make better decisions. This is part of democracy. I mean, this is, when you say the power is within the people, you have to enable them in the sense of that they not only can talk, but also have the right basis for making a decision. And this is our duty to do. So we have to go outside. We have to work together. I mean, here, all the huge international organizations like OECD, IMF, and the UN, and Eurostat, and all these organizations, FAO, and then all together, and also the administration, we have to clarify what our role is in the data world through data governance, data metadata, and then we have to talk to these people, and we have to go to them and show them what we can do and what is the value we can bring them. This is very a difficult task, because now we have time where the money goes into military service instead of statistics. But one of the function to ensure peace is statistics. I mean, there were never a time who were so peaceful since statistics is here. I mean, we can show how the things, I mean, I was mentioning it a bit in my speech, that on one side we have terrible times, but on the other side we make also huge progresses. Even though huge progresses is maybe not the news value that most media takes, but we have to bring this information through our own channels to the broader world, through social media, to wherever, or that our data is AI readable. I mean, I think these are the things we really have to do.
Okay, George, so let's turn to metadata, your favorite subject. You've been very vocal in the last couple of years on the need to harmonize metadata. In practical terms, how do NSOs, central banks, international organizations start this process? I mean, what does this mean to harmonize metadata globally?
Yeah, this is, it's like a title of a couple of books. Huh? I mean, theoretically, we all know, but there are these four elements of interoperability we have to focus on: technically, semantically, the legal part, and also the organizational part. I think the most difficult part is the organizational part, because when we started that discussion in Switzerland, it was like, as you probably know, we have 7 ministers in Switzerland, and each minister has the same voice. I mean, we don't have a president who can overrule anyone else. And actually, at the end of the day, they are not the ministers who have the power. It's always the people who have the power, and for every single topic. So they came together and they asked me exactly this question. They were saying, look, we have so many data. I mean, we don't even know what kind of data we have. Do you have a solution? And I was saying, look, this is a way to go. Depending on where you stay, you can have different solutions. You have seen that the technological development in the last couple of years have many different solutions. I mean, I wouldn't charge which one is the right one, which one is the wrong one, because this is sometimes difficult and it's maybe also too early. But one problem we all face is we don't know what we have. Some statistical office even don't know for themselves. I mean, they know for each statistic what they have, but they compare the product and not the part in the value chain where data occurs. So actually, the first thing you have to do is, of course, bring your own data on a stage that it's AI readable, or you describe it the same way. But what we started was we developed this metadata platform, this I14Y, and the only reason was that we have to have a law or something that you have to describe your data the way that we can make it visible on that platform. In Switzerland, this is an incredibly difficult task to get this law. So we started with the platform. And the main element there is that you start seeing who has what. In Switzerland, it was like that. We were saying, if we collect data twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times, that costs a lot of money. So if you want to lower burden, first in the sense of that you have to give your data a couple of times, or you have to collect it a couple of times, we make it visible on one spot. And we hoped that people are saying, oh yeah, that makes absolutely sense, so we start to go on that platform. It worked, but it worked first in places where I have the power to do this, so our own registers, our own data, we started there. And then we had to build up bodies with the other administration. They have to work together with us, and we started with the administrative data. And of course, with the time, the idea is to expand that more and more. One of the difficult things is, for example, private health data or company data, because they invested a lot of money in their own data, and they say, I don't just give my data, I mean, I want to have something for that. So we were saying, okay, this I14Y platform enables everyone to see what you have. And if, for example, there is the government, you have to give the data anyway. I mean, this is, we have laws for that. But if, for example, the researchers want it, you could give him if you want to give him. And if someone wants to make money with it, you can sell it to him. So like these data mesh approaches. So we started on a point where we tried to expand that slowly. It's like a Google engine machine for data, if you want to say. Maybe, I don't know if Google is a good example, but it's a way to start. And in Switzerland, one of the main arguments we could have brought to that discussion was it's within a sovereign system. So the data stays there where it is collected, and we make it just visible. So there is no one who has access to your data without you wanted that this is possible. So this, we started 2018. So all the ministers, the 7 ministers gave us this task. They didn't gave us money for it, but they gave us the task. They were saying the chief statistician is also the data steward. And now you start to build up bodies talking about the data, you bring them together, and you have to define a kind of a strategy where you start. So we started, of course, with the statistical data, and then we made this data space. We started with a data space discussion. We were saying, okay, let's start with mobility data because there is a lot of data already there, which is harmonized. We placed it on the I-14Y. We worked together, of course, with the Swiss Topographic Institute, and then expand that one by one. What we face is that it goes incredibly slow. It works, but it is incredibly slow. I had a long discussion with my minister. Well, how can we accelerate this? And so he was saying, look, actually, we can hope that we have a problem somewhere. Then you will get more money, or you will get money, and then you can invest in there. So luckily, COVID showed that we have deficiencies in the health sector. So the Parliament of Switzerland gave us money to say, let's go on a way. We call it Digi Santé, Santé from health, and to standardize all data from end-to-end processes and make it accessible for academia and others who has the right to have access to that. It's a problem. The duration is 10 years, and we started, and the echo is incredible. Really, the people say, this is what we have to have. And my learning is, it is like if you start explaining a kind of a system that is difficult to understand what it can do at the end of the day, then it takes incredible long time, and it's hard to do. So you have to start somewhere. I made the example of Digi Santé, but of course there are also other examples, like the IMF examples. They found a way for the whole value chain, and you have to start there. The most important element, I think, is that we have to pay into a roof in something that every one of us is pay into. This was a bit the idea of this Trusted Data Observatory. Maybe you've heard about it. It's the global metadata catalog at the UN level that we start, like we've done it in Switzerland with your data that you have in your agencies. And we harmonize and make our data visible on such a platform, Trusted Data Observatory. Of course, it has to be free of charge, an open source software, and then we make it visible. The data still stays in your countries, so it's sovereign. We harmonize it like we harmonize also our statistical production, and then we can have a discussion on it, who has access, how they have access. And this data, which is already open, of course, should also be AI readable. So this is a bit the way I think we have to go. And even though I know it takes a lot of time and education, I would say that 90% of my work is just to educate others. And when I look back 5 years ago and I talked about interoperability, no one knew what I'm talking about. I mean, I just remind back in 2017, it was my first time I was chair at the UN Statistical Commission. I made the proposal to install a data steward at the UN level, and everyone was laughing and was saying, this crazy guy in Switzerland, what he's talking about. And I mean, if you look today, time has really changed. I think now, today, no one is questioning anymore that we have to do this. It's a bit a question of how quick can we do it. And here I really hope that everyone knows this has to be a priority, even though we know it's hard times. But I mean, I do that also in Switzerland. From one year to the others, they cut my budget by almost 10%. And I have to do this at the same time, lowering services and things like that, lowering people working at the office, and at the same time, investing a lot in the metadata part. And this is a huge, I would say, challenge for also showing leadership and things like that.
George,
but this is the way we have to go, yeah.
There's a question I have to ask based on everything you've said. We're at an SDMX conference. How does SDMX contribute to this grand vision?
I mean, SDMX is a metadata catalog standard that is already very well known, and I think we have to invest a lot there, bring it more to the attention also of your Director General of all the agencies, because one of the things is quite often people think this is kind of a technical thing. This is the core of what a leading person should know about. If I talk about these things with politicians, they're saying, oh, this is technical, it's not an issue for us. And I say always, this is our main problem. if decision makers doesn't understand what SDMX does, what metadata is, then how can they do a good decision? So we have to bring them these issues to their attention, but we have to bring it in a way that they understand it. I quite often make examples like when you go with your car and you fill your gasoline. It's good if you know what is the driver. Is it gasoline? Is it electricity? Is it diesel? Or what is it? And you have to make example like this that they understand. This is the same like an SDMX standard. So the description, what you can put into your trunk, in your tank, is important, and they should know this. So that's why SDMX, you have to go out, you have to talk to your ministers, to your DGs, and bring it to their attention and say, if you don't do that, you can talk a lot about relevance, but you're not relevant anymore if you don't have described your data. And SDMX is the way to this.
Thanks so much, Steve and John, Simon, and this is a very rich and thought-provoking discussion. And we have 9 minutes left, and we're going to break the protocol. We didn't have a Q&A session, but I think we have a few minutes, and so we want to maybe open up for one or two questions before our first coffee break. Yeah, there's a lot that we can ask. Yeah, please, raise your hand. There's one hand there.
Thank
Please
you.
State your name and organization and ask
Thank
your
you.
question, please.
Yes, thanks a lot for this presentation, George Simon. I'm Stratos Nikolaousis from the BIS. So working on SDMX, I remember that our objective initially was to make machine-readable data and metadata. But I think that what we haven't accounted for is that machines have changed. So the machines we were looking for until recently was just something deterministic that we program and we really know what the outcome is. But now with the AI, things have completely changed. So I'm wondering on the statistics office in Switzerland, if you have any recommendations or measures that you've already put in place to tackle this issue, because it's becoming very relevant nowadays. Thanks.
Yeah, the most easy way is really if you have your next relaunch on your website, you take this opportunity to change these things. I mean, it's not just LLMs. Technology, it is also about LLMO. So how is your value chain process that at the end of the day, on each stage, you think about, can a machine read that and how they would read that? This is an incredibly difficult task because some of this development you don't know today. And of course, there are a lot of technology on the way. They do that by themselves. But up to now, they're not here. I mean, we tested a couple of such tools in Switzerland. Some of them were quite good, but it's always they're focusing one specific element. As soon as the data is good structured, it's getting easier. But for your question, I mean, what can a statistical office do? I can tell you what we do in Switzerland. We really changed the whole way data is disseminated, and it's on our website. We completely changed that. Just making a couple of simple examples. The whole text that we have today on our website is incredible, a lot of information. We bring that on a new platform for dissemination, where we ask AI themselves, how should that be presented, that you can read that? And then they make suggestions. There are, of course, a couple of good people knowing how to do this. They know how you have to structure the text, how you have to, for example, many pictures cannot be read if you don't have a description of the picture, or you have a code. So you need to educate the people who write the press release or provide the data on the platform, how they have to do it, that it's machine readable for AI. So describe also the pictures, and not making a picture itself, but describing in the background what is on that picture, what you can see, what you can say. It's like a meta description of the picture. And if you don't have something like that, no one will find, they will find something from your website. So this is the first thing you have to do. The second thing you have really, and this is what we have talked about, also the future technology in AI will prioritize these variables who are good described. Because specifically the semantic part is a huge problem for AI, for our data, because it's not the technical part. If you have SDMX or DCAP or whatever, they will find ways to transfer that somehow. But the semantic part is now, a bank, is that an institution that you can take money, or is it something that you can sit on it? Things like that are difficult for AI technology today. So to describe these things on the semantic part is any way to do, even though that takes a lot of time. But I mean, if you also see knowledge graphs and all these things, they need this information behind to know what's in there. So that's why these are the two things I would say. First, make all your website and everything you provide on the internet LLM readable, LLM organization, in the sense they work together, that in each part of the value chain you think about the technology as well, also your customer. Most statistical offices is not anymore a person that searches for data. I mean, also in Switzerland, it's 80% are machines. And the second thing, that you invest in the metadata catalog, in the metadata part, specifically in the semantic part, because this is what most others have difficulties on. This is what statistical people can do quite well. Also, of course, geospatial people can do that quite well. In the geospatial field, it is a bit different. They have not topics like interconnect the data with personal data, because as long data is open, it's anyway easy. But as soon as you have to connect them with personal data people, then you need to have someone who can do that in a trusted surrounding, like do that with privacy preserving techniques. And for that, you need quite often a law. In Switzerland, I have a law for that. Since 1992, I have a law that I can interconnect for statistical purpose, research purpose, and planning purpose, the data. And this is, of course, also something that I would strongly suggest that the statistical office are allowed to do this. You have to ensure the security in the sense that you cannot identify people. So you have to aggregate the data, but this is something we can do, and this is a USP we have. This you should play, yeah.
Thank you, Josimon. We have one last question from Giuseppe. Go ahead, Giuseppe. Use your microphone. Yep, mic.
Giuseppe Bruno from the Bank of Italy. My question is related to the role of AI and the consumers of statistics. You have mentioned many times role of AI and LLM. My question is whether you see some kind of, threat or role in the new agentic AI framework, which in some sense gives a flavor that we can get rid of the man in the loop, because when you prepare a framework that go in the pipeline, everything, just building, reading different statistics and building graphs and building tables. What can we do to govern this new development? Thanks a lot.
This is a bit the same as we have today. I mean, look, this, of course, you can take the same data. If you take, you mentioned the agents. If you take an agent, you can provide him a definition on how you want to interpret the data. This is something that every normal person does. I mean, they're taking the data they want to take, and then they make the argument they want to take. The only thing we can make is that the brand official statistics, there is a definition behind that we were saying this is the basis of reference where we refer to. But of course, if you have an agent, an AI, and you give him a post that you say, I want to take this definition, which is not the same as in statistical office, they will give you other figures. But this is also like this today. I mean, it's just AI professionalize that. And this is, of course, also a danger. I mean, there are many people, they're getting the news today from AI agents, not anymore from newspapers. And there is no person anymore behind. So that means that the media they don't have anymore this power to, yeah, to really look behind the things, because only what is published on the internet is findable. So this is a huge danger, also for the media world. And you have seen how far that can go. So people just lie through media, and people there. Some politicians have their own media, but here I think the importance is that the brand official statistics, that we say this is our basis of reference. But of course, it's fine if someone else has another one. We can't change that. That will be like that. And of course, that is also a difficult thing, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I was saying we are the currency of somehow the reality, is that we talk about the same reality. If you have another reality and you give the post to your agent in the way that you build up your own bubble, you still can do that. I mean, this is how it works also today. Even, I mean, most statisticians, most politicians, or even everyone from us as a part of a bubble, and the agents will accelerate that. So it's important that we make better marketing, I would say, for our brand, and say we have a transparent governance. We make it the same way. This is our definition, and this is the basis of reference. And if it is statistical proved in the sense of the statistical office of a country, then this is kind of a product. And you say, okay, this has to be trusted, and not the result from an agent that you defined your own post that reflects just your bubble. Yeah, it's a difficult task. Yeah.
Thank you, George Simon. So I think this session has inspired all of us to think ahead about what SDMX can do to have like trusted data and statistics. So I think the opening session closes here. Let's give a round of applause to George Simon, Steve, and Bruno. George Simon, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good conference.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So maybe before taking a short break, a couple of practical notes. So the coffee break will be served in the rooms. They're called Manzoni and Ariosto. You will see them. I think they will instruct you outside where to go. It's a great opportunity, of course, to connect with colleagues. And don't forget also to visit the exhibition space near the coffee break, so you can explore there all the latest SDMX tools, innovations, and other initiatives that our partners will showcase throughout the conference. So let's take a break, and we will reconvene here at 11, where we will start our first session. Thank you all.